In this episode, I start off this new podcast with an interview with one of the designers of Mythras, Lawrence Whitaker. And with his help, we bring you up to date with what's coming out new for Mythras during the month of May. Welcome to the Mythras Matters podcast, Season 1, Episode 1. May your Mythras matter. Hello and welcome to the brand new Mythras podcast, Mythras Matters. My name is Inwils and you will find me playing the Mythras game online or creating YouTube content for it or frequenting the various forums, asking and hopefully answering questions about the rule set. It was while creating content and listening to your feedback that a question was posed to me about the possibility of a podcast. So, after talking to the Design Mechanism company, it was decided that this would be a great contribution to the rule set. The idea has been thought about over the last month, and after some considerable hard work, here it is. Hopefully the first of many monthly podcasts dedicated to all things Mythras. So, since starting to play Mythras, I've been really amazed by the fantastic community that exists out there for the rule set. And because of this, I'm keen not to make this podcast a one-person show. Therefore, I'm going to reach out to all you players, creators, and game masters to contribute to the content. This might be doing an audio review on one of the supplements for Mythras, or sending in an audio question, or even offering to co-host an episode or more alongside myself. So please do get in touch with me if you're interested in getting involved. I've set up an email specifically for this. It's mythrasmatters@gmail.com, and I'll also pop this in the show notes below. So why not send me an email? It'd be great to hear from you and to receive your expressions of interest. So I've been playing role-playing games for some time now, but I'm still quite new to the Mythras rule system, and there'll be some of you out there listening to this that might be in my position or might have been using the rule set for quite considerable amount of time. However, I thought it would be really good for this first episode for me to get in touch with Lawrence Whitaker, one of the designers of the game, the other one being Pete Nash, and to actually, get hold of him across the internet and to ask him a few questions that I had about the rule set. And that's exactly what I did. So I'll just make sure that everything is up and working. I think it is. So I'm joined today by one of the creators of Mythras. Would you like to introduce yourself and say who you are?
Oh, go on then. Yes, thank you, Ian. I'm Lawrence Whitaker. I'm known online as Loz, and as you just said, Ian, I'm one of the co-creators of Mythras, along with Pete Nash, who's my long-time Design Mechanism partner, one of my oldest friends, and we formed Design Mechanism.
So I've been playing and streaming role-playing games using the Mythras rule set for some time now, but it is possible that there might be some people listening into this podcast who have never heard about the system at all. So what is Mythras all about?
Telling great stories with your friends really well is what Mythras is about. I mean, it's a very traditional role-playing game. It comes from the Chaosium system that was developed in the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, which is often known as basic role-playing. It's based on the standard core statistics, strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, and so on. It uses a percentile system to resolve skills, so you have a percentage chance of success. Your skills are there on the character sheet. You can see exactly what your chance is of accomplishing something. It's gritty, it's realistic, it doesn't rely on levels or classes, which appeals to some people very much. Very intuitive. You roll your percentage dice. If you score equal to or under your skill, you've succeeded. Bang. That's as really complex as it needs to be. There's levels of sophistication built into it. With Mythras, we have lots of things around combat, such as special effects, which kind of make it a bit more exciting, a bit more tactical. But at its heart, it's a very straightforward, simple, very iterative system that came out of the Chaosium stable.
So Mythras is a really interesting name, and when I first started to GM the system, I did hope that I was actually pronouncing it correctly.
You are.
What was the inspiration behind the name Mythras? How did you come up with it?
It's a very strange kind of story. Originally the game was RuneQuest 6th edition, and the license reversed to Chaosium in 2016, and we had about a year's notice to sort of rebrand the game and come up with a new name for it. And we were racking our brains over what we were going to call the game. Looked around online, everything's taken. All the cool names that you can think of, all taken, all gone, or the permutations just didn't kind of fit. And Pete and I were kind of kicking around different ideas and what is the game about? Well, there's a lot of myth in there. There's, certainly in the fantasy iterations of the game that we have, it relies a lot on myth. And we have a mythics range of supplements. Mythic Britain, Mythic Constantinople, Mythic Rome, and so on. So myth was definitely something that if we could kind of put it in there, we wanted. We thought about calling it the Mythic system, but that's already taken. Then, I don't know when it popped into my head. It was probably when I was doing something daft, like in the shower or doing the washing up or cleaning or something like that. There is a god, Mythras, which is an ancient Roman god, came over to Britain with the Romans, existed long before that. He's a god of oaths, he's a god of agriculture, he's a god of stories, he's a protector god. Mythras. I thought, why don't we just spell Mythras with a Y? Because Mythras is spelled M-I-T-H-R-A-S. Then we have myth. We had a god which appears in some of our supplements. It's in Mythic Rome. Mythras is in Mythic Britain. The name fit. Mythras, it was. So that's how it came to be.
So you've spoken about this, the system all to do with percentile dice and the skills, etc. And I was wondering, when you first created the rule set of Mythras, what were you hoping for? What were the aims for that Mythras system?
We wanted it to be coherent, elegant, but straightforward as well, and adaptable. I think those are probably design decisions that we worked with from the very start. We're very fortunate in working with a very solid rule set anyway. The basic role-playing rule set, the stable it comes from, has been tried and tested over many, many years. It's been through many different iterations, so we know it works. But quite often it's been kind of inconsistent in its approach to things, and that's just a result of organic growth. When we were putting together our version of RuneQuest, the RuneQuest 6th edition, which is effectively Mythras, we wanted to make things work in a very similar way all the way through the game. We wanted things to connect in a very similar way, in a very modular way, but also in ways that wouldn't break so easily. So if you want to drop a bit of the rules that you don't particularly like, or anything else, if you want to bolt something on, you should be able to do it without too much difficulty or having to change different assumptions. But we still wanted all the assumptions to work methodically all the way through the game. So we spent a lot of time kind of refining what we were going to do with the rules. And I think it took Pete and I about 5 years to kind of get the rules to a state where we knew they would work satisfactorily. So when we were putting the rule set together for publication, we knew that they should work. We've done a lot of play testing, but we still gave it to a lot of different disparate play testers to kind of fiddle with and make sure that it did work. And I think that's a great strength of it. It's very easy to adapt the core system to, obviously it supports fantasy, but different kinds of fantasy, gritty fantasy, historical fantasy, heroic fantasy. Science fiction, science fantasy, modern day, 1920s pulp, anything of that nature. Mythras can do that with a modicum of tweaking to it. That was really what we were striving for.
Yes, I must admit what I really like about this system is the way it's easily adaptable to sort of like any settings. And I haven't actually played Mythras. I have done once, but mainly GM'd it. But I really like the elements of the realism, the adaptability, and that opportunity to actually role play and produce that narrative. How long has Mythras in its current form actually been around for then?
The system in this incarnation, we released it in 2012. So it's coming up for 7 years now. It's been called Mythras since 2016, but it's been around for 7 years or so. And we had it in a previous incarnation before that was published by Mongoose when they had the request license, and it was around for about 3 years before that. So it's been around for the best part of 10 years. So we know the system's pretty robust. You said about it allowing the narrative to happen. I think that's very important. And that isn't actually something that's unique to Mythras. That is a quality of the basic role-playing system, the D100 system, that kind of it's always allowed the rules to kind of fade into the background and support narrative elements. It's always had that capability. A good case in point is the Call of Cthulhu game, which is hugely popular, has been for best part of nearly 40 years now. And right so, because the mechanics really do fade into the background. They're very simple and straightforward, yet it provides some wonderful narrative opportunities around sanity, around unthinkable horror. And that just shows how good a system it is for a traditional rule set to be able to support that kind of play. So that's inherent in the way that the mechanics of the game really work together.
So looking back on it, is there anything that you would change? You know, now that you've got this established rule set and you've gone through that creation, and you sort of like look back, and is there anything that you would have changed or think, oh, I wish we had put that in it?
No, I don't think so, because we spend a lot of time thinking very carefully about what we would put in there. We knew it was going to be adaptable. We did have a business plan for adaptability. We knew that we were going to do a science fiction iteration of the game in some shape or form. We did that with the Luther Arkwright supplement. We knew we wanted to do some kind of two-fisted pulp stuff. We did that with Monster Island. We knew we were going to do the Mythic series, so we knew we were going to do gritty historical fantasy. So we already built the rules to support that kind of ability. No, I don't think there's anything. There are things we tweak, and we actually have done with our latest printing of it. We've kind of included some errata. We've tweaked things just a little bit in response to player feedback, actually. There's nothing that we would do differently. We don't feel the need to do a second edition of Mythras. That's not to. It works perfectly well. We don't feel any real need. We've certainly got no regrets about how the system is. And it's definitely growing in popularity. It's if you look at some of the forums out there, Mythras is mentioned more and more frequently and always gets pretty good notices. So it is kind of building in its, and being around for nearly 10 years, you'd expect that. It's always heartening to see that there are lots of people that have played the game.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you see that development across the internet, on forum posts, on Reddit, and even on Twitch, that Mythras has started to sort of like surface more and is being used and actually discussed a lot more. And like you say, it's been around for 10 years now. So I was thinking, looking forward another 10 years in the future, what are your hopes for Mythras? Where do you see it going to?
It would be wonderful to say that it will have obviously supplanted Dungeons & Dragons 8th edition as the most popular role-playing game on the planet. We'll have bought Wizards of the Coast, obviously. We will be running Hasbro from our yachts somewhere in the Mediterranean. So that'd be a nice pipe dream. I think in reality, what's most likely is we will continue doing what we have been doing until we get tired of doing it. And what we enjoy doing is developing and publishing material that we enjoy playing. And when I say we, I mean obviously myself and Pete. We play this game ourselves regularly, but also what people enjoy. And as long as we're able to do that, that's what we'll do. We don't have any radical agendas. We don't have a desire to reinvent role-playing in a different image. We're very, very kind of old school role players. We've been in place since the very early 80s. We don't have a desire to do anything much different to that. But we will see what the future holds. We will take things, kind of 1 year at a time, and as long as we can keep doing what we enjoy, and it's enjoyed by other people, we will keep doing.
Yeah, and I think that really sort of like sums up what Mythras is all about for me. It's people coming together either in the same room or across the internet, colleagues, friends, people who share that common role-playing experience. And it's almost like coming together and gaining immense enjoyment, actually sharing that experience and actually participating in creations. And all the content that I produce because I enjoy doing it. And that's a really important aspect of the role for me. So many people have never heard of Mythras, and there might be some people listening to this podcast who have never heard of Mythras and have no idea about what it is. So what advice would you give to new players, new GMs coming to the system for the first time?
First of all, don't panic. I think the words of Douglas Adams are apt in anything. Don't. Download Mythras Imperative, which is the kind of starter set for the it's a 48-page booklet. It's completely free. You can get it from our website. That has got the core of the system in there. It's presented in a nice, intuitive way. It's very simple to get to grips with. It doesn't contain anything too complex like magic or any of the sort of the sort of bolt-on things that we've got in the main rulebook. That will give you a really good idea of D100 playing. Just get a good feel for the system and how it works. Download a couple of scenarios. Again, we've got a few free scenarios on the website that cover a range of different things. Download a couple of those. Play them and see what you think. And if you find the game is not for you, we all have different tastes, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to learn more, then the core rules is where to go. And then maybe look at one of our supplements. And we have supplements that cover a wide range of different genres. We have sort of standard sort of mythic fantasy with our Fenler setting. We've got historic fantasy with our mythics range. We have science fiction, comic book fantasy with Luther Arkwright, urban fantasy with After the Vampire Wars, pop science fiction with Worlds United. We've got lots of stuff to support the kind of game that you want to play. Make Mythras your Mythras. That's kind of mantra that we say to everybody. It's your game. Don't be afraid of changing things that you don't like. Don't feel there's one way to play this. There are multiple. You play you are comfortable with. Look at our forums. Look at forums on places like BRP Central. There's a big community out there. May not be as big as some, but it's very passionate. And they are generally very, very friendly. They will give you lots of advice if you have questions. Pete and I, we frequently go on the forums. We're very happy to answer questions. So ask them if you have them. But don't panic. Enjoy the game. It really is quite straightforward. And if you're coming from certain other rule sets that have different approaches, such as levels and classes, it's a very different kind of play. Your taste, it may not, but give it a go. Give it a go as it's written and see what you like about it, change what you don't. Hopefully you'll stick with it. If you don't, that's perfectly fine with us. Thank you for watching. Really, that's what we...
Yeah, I totally agree with this element of do not panic. And I must admit, when we came to the system brand new, I took it very much one step at a time. And we sort of like looked at character creation. Then we generally looked at how the skills worked and brought that in. And then we looked at specific areas for magic and then the combat and got more involved in that. that. And I think it's this step-by-step approach, but also being prepared to sort of like make it your own. And I've said before how adaptable the system is, and I think that's what makes it a wonderful rule set, is that adaptability. So yes, you know, get your toes wet. Don't make a judgment before you've really sort of like had a go at it, and then enjoy it. So what has Mythras got in store for us in the month of May? What's coming up?
Right. So we've got two things that I am putting the final touches to at the moment. First is a supplement for the Thenla setting, which I mentioned earlier in the discussion. Thenla is a complete fantasy setting. It's very sort of classical in its approach, based on the Hellenic Greece, a bit of Roman, a bit of Persian thrown in there, but in a sort of its own fantasy world. And the supplement that we're finalising is called Soran Din, and it focuses on a small city-state. It's on the verge of collapse and anarchy. It is home to the artificers and alchemists of the world. Affected all of that, but it's got some very deep, dark politicking and undercurrents in there. It's actually not completely new material. It was produced for an earlier version of the game, back when it was published by Mongoose. And we've updated it for the Mythras rules, and a new layout, done some tweaking, added some things in, some new artwork and so forth. So we're just putting the finishing touches to that. It's been proofread, and I'm hoping that that's going to be out hopefully middle of next month. That's our hope there. So if you're a Thenla fan, and there are quite a few Thenla fans out there, that is on its way. But it's one of those products that you can, if you want a fantasy city with sewers and weird mecha mechanical things, sorcery going on, it's perfect. It's really, really good for that kind of stuff. So you could take that and drop it into your own campaign. The second thing is the Mythras Companion, which is something that I'm talking about off and on probably for over a year now. The Mythras Companion, again, is not entirely original material. As Mythras has kind of grown in the telling over the past few years, we've produced lots of different supplements, and they've got different rules to kind of tailor the core game to their genre. So with our Luther Arkwright setting, we introduced rules for vehicles, rules for sanity, and so forth. Now, a lot of those were applicable to different games, whether it's the fantasy genre or historical stuff or just your homebrew. What we thought we'd do is collect the most common of those different bits of rules, which all fit perfectly well with Mythras core, and release them all in one booklet, so that you'll have the vehicle rules, the sanity rules, and some additional combat rules all in one place. So you don't have to go and get your classic fantasy book out, or go and buy a copy of Luther Arkwright if you want the sanity rules. So it's really designed to sort of collect together in one place as a companion package to the main rules and Mythras Imperative. But we've also put some original content in there as well. It wouldn't be there just to have stuff that's come from other games. So we have produced rules for social conflict. So these are effectively combat rules for words and feelings. If you want to run a court case, I love court cases, then you can do it with the social conflict rules. If you want to run debates or parliamentary sort of disagreements, you can use the social for that. They're being play tested at the moment. They still need a bit more kicking around, but they're kind of almost complete. We have some additional rules for racers and chasers as well for a while. So doesn't matter what sort of chase, whether it's a foot chase, a competitive race such as in the Olympics or the fantasy version of it, or a car chase, or dogfighting in space, doing attack runs of huge, great moon-sized space stations. This will allow you to do that kind of thing as well at any kind of level, and it replicates again the kind of standard feel for Mythras conflict. Social conflict, races and chasers, and Mythras combat work pretty much in the same way. You generate levels of success. That gives you special effects. That allows you to do different cool things. So that's brand new content that we've put in there. So it's quite a few different things in the companion. I'm really looking forward to that coming out, and hopefully that should be mid-May as well. We'll probably release that and Sorended together.
Yes, well, thank you very much for that. It sounds like there's a lot of really good content coming out in May, and I, for one, am really looking forward to it and looking forward to purchasing those items and getting them into my gaming and into my campaign. I've already got some ideas for several of them. So can I say a huge thank you, Lawrence, for coming along and being interviewed for the podcast. I hope we can get you and Pete back some other time. And we are going to open up questions for our audience to pose to you. So hopefully you'll be able to come back and answer those in the future.
Thank you very much, Ian. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to coming back again with Pete as well, I hope.
So that's it. The first episode of the official Mythras podcast comes to an end. Please do let us know what you would like to be included in future episodes of the podcast and spread the word. There is a great community out there surrounding the Mythras game, so let's share how much we enjoy the game and encourage everyone to see why Mythras matters. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you get a notification when the next month's episode surfaces, and until then, let's hope that all our opposed roles succeed and provide us with a well-deserved special. Have a great month of gaming, everyone, and we will chat again in June. Until then, see ya. Bye. The content of this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, so please give appropriate credit if you are sharing or copying any part of this podcast. Thank you.